Hello, Ed. We're waiting for everyone else. Hello, Ed. Can you hear me? Oh, you're getting in. Hello.
Hi, Howard.
I'm
How
waiting
are
for the
you?
rest of the club. Uh, just so you know, is your speaker on? Is your mic on?
I do have my mic on,
No,
and
I don't hear you. Oh, maybe it's me. Try again.
okay.
I hear you now. It
I
was
have a new microphone, and I have an old computer, and so I'm about to upgrade computers. So this new
okay.
blue Yeti microphone might not be working right.
It's a great microphone. No, mine was muted.
Okay,
I also
good
use a
deal.
Yeti's a good microphone. That's a Yeti.
All right, good deal.
Yeah, it's a good microphone. I like them. We're waiting for people to show up. We record all our meetings. A lot of the members will come and watch the video. That's why it's the podcast. It's an e-club. So one of the reasons they join is like I'm a speaker. I'm the world's fastest reader. We travel a lot, so we can't always go to the meetings, but we watch the video. So there's a
Gotcha.
lot more. There's 25 members, so they'll eventually hear whatever we do tonight, no matter how many people show up. Usually, Linda and David are here. They're having some struggles with their computer, and she's trying to come online. She just called me, and there's a couple of other people. Pretty much, we have about 5 or 6, 7 people show up on the live, and the rest of them watch the video. So you're not just talking to 4 or 5 people. You're talking to a lot more than it looks like. I just thought you'd not want to know that because when you're a speaker and you see, oh, I'm just talking to Howard, it's like, that's great.
No, I totally get how the digital world works,
Yeah.
Howard. I'm getting into that game,
Yeah.
and I learned a lot from you, from Clubhouse, and other different coaches and mentors I'm learning from. So
Oh, thank
I
you.
get that. Even if it's a small audience initially live, you can't be deterred by that.
And I have a
There's a lot of
story on that. I heard this many years ago. Frank Sinatra was playing in the Meadowlands, which is a very big theater, and I don't know, it was like 30, 40,000 people bought tickets, and there was a huge blizzard, and something like a dozen people showed up from the 30, 40,000, and they said he gave the performance of a lifetime.
Wow.
And when he was done, one of the roadies, stagehand, said, "Why did you do that? There's nobody there." He said, "They showed up."
That's right.
Sh-
I just wrote it at the top of my thing. Showtime is go time. So in the aircrew world, you got to have your stuff together and be ready to go at showtime. Showtime is go time.
he said, maybe 40,000 people stayed home, but those 13 showed up in a blizzard. They deserved the
right.
performance I gave them. And that's
Yes,
how
sir.
I think as a speaker, if it's one person, you do the same thing you do for 40,000. Maybe that one person turns out to be an agent. You just don't know.
Yes, sir.
You just don't know. And it reflects on you, what you do, not what they didn't do. Of course, we'd rather be in the room if there were 40,000 people. It's always, there's an energy there that you would love, but you deal with whatever you have.
That's right.
Yeah.
Go with what's that term? Go with what you have, where
go-
you are, right here and now.
I like that. Oh, people are showing up now. Okay. I gotta let them in.
And this is the Rotary Club of Dallas.
Actually, this is the Rotary E Club of North Texas. It's the
North
Dallas
Texas.
Rotary. Rotary's arranged into districts. And there's I think in this district there's 68 or 69 clubs. And there's multiple districts across the world. There's a lot of members, millions of people.
Right.
And as a speaker, I speak a lot to Rotary for a lot of reasons. One, I'm a Rotarian, so that makes it, a good reason. But it's easy to get booked in Rotary because they don't pay speakers and they always need one. So just figure 69 clubs looking for a speaker 52 times a year, and that's one district. Linda, how many districts are there? Sure, no.
How many districts? 537, I think, worldwide.
So 537 times 52.
It's probably one of the largest social networks then.
We're the largest international service organization. We were chartered in 1905, and we represent over 200 countries and territories.
Wow.
So for a speaker, Rotary's fantastic because let's say you're going to speak in New York.
Somebody wants in.
I just let him in.
Hi, Tanya.
That was 2 years after the Wright brothers flew.
Yeah. So you're in a city where you want to speak.
As a flyer, I have to know that stuff.
Have you been over there to where they took off?
I have, and I want to take my kids for the summer, actually.
Yeah, we were over there a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Kitty Hawk and the Nag's Head and the Outer Banks. I grew up in Virginia, so
okay.
North Carolina coast is close to my heart.
Okay. That was actually a powered kite. The real airplane, not everyone knows this, was Curtis Armstrong. He was sued by the Orvilles for patent infringement, copyright infringement. But he invented the airship. It had a tail, it had elevators, it had flaps, and he says this is a very different design than the Wright brothers. They used wing warping. If you look at the picture, they would bend the wings to make their turns. Modern planes are based on Curtis Armstrong's program, not the Wright brothers. They were bankrupt when they died. He's the one who actually invented the airplane. Now we got to give them credit for having initiated, but they didn't make the money. Curtis Armstrong did, and it was a very big case. It was a huge case because of the significance, and he said, I didn't invent the airplane, I invented the airship. And look, it's like a boat. It's got flaps, it's got a tail, it's got a rudder. He says, this is based on a ship. And that's how planes fly today. They do not you don't see a pilot on the wings stretching them in one direction. Yeah. You wouldn't want to be in a fighter jet trying to stretch the wings at 3 times the speed of sound.
Right.
Don't tell David about flying airplanes. Dave was an aeronautical engineer, and he designed airplanes, and he worked on the landing gear thing for the B-2.
That's the real story. That's how it happened. That's how they invented the airplane. And the other story that's interesting is for millennia, from the time there were people, whatever that was, till the Wright brothers, no one could fly. They basically thought flight would never happen. It was inconceivable. 66 years after the Wright brothers, they landed on the moon, which just shows you once someone demonstrates the possibility, then the questions change from can we fly to how do we fly higher and faster and better and longer. And they ended up on the moon 69 years after a powered kite. It only went a few dozen feet. I don't even know if it went that far. It was a very, very short flight, but long enough to prove the concept was viable. That's all it took.
I love it. Higher, faster, farther, Howard. That's how I live my life. If I'm not doing it better and have a growth mindset, I don't feel like myself.
Okay, well, I'm going to start the meeting. We would just chat. This is our social. When most clubs have a meeting, they have coffee or they have a meal and they kind of sit around. We do it in this little box environment.
Jerica should be on, I thought.
Well, I'm letting anyone in that comes.
Okay.
I'm not holding anyone back. I am keeping an eye on participants. The box is
I'm
open.
I'm just having dinner.
Oh, okay. Well, we haven't had dinner. We just barely got into the hotel here.
Oh.
They're on the road again.
Yeah, we have to drop our computers off to get them repaired.
But your hair looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been working on it.
All the guys really work on their hair.
All you need is a lollipop. You could be Telly Savalas.
I want to be him for Halloween one year, Howard.
Yeah.
I almost did it last year.
I want to be him.
I love Telly.
I want his bank account. Okay, I'm going to start the meeting. I think we've got enough people have gotten in to get it going. You can see, and they're a little tardy, so I gotta wait
No
till they
problem.
show up. Okay, ring the bell. Welcome to Rotary E-Club of North Texas, June 27th meeting. Linda, would you like to do the affirmation?
Okay. Bless this meeting and our Rotary members. Let us continue to do good in the world. And in our theme for this next year, create hope in the world. Bless everyone. Amen.
Good job. David, I see you lurking in the background. Would you like to do the pledge?
Pledge. 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 Oh.
That's his job.
No. Go ahead. Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Perfect. First, I want to say we had our...
There's my flag.
all right, we had a flag. So I trained the Wounded Warriors last weekend, like I do every year. And I was training the U.S. Special Forces, and they said 30 of the Wounded Warriors commit suicide every day. And I said, that's just unacceptable. Why? They said, can't find work. I said, they have a college fund. They can go back to school and get and they don't know how to learn. So I said, I could teach that. They have no money. When my dad was on Omaha Beach, he was on D-Day. He was wounded. So I do a class once a year for the Wounded Warriors through Rotary. So I just want to let you know, so you can put it in as one of our club activities. I did do it, and that'll help the club, to show that we did something. That's what I have to report. Does anyone, I know, Linda, do you have any new business or any old business we need to know?
No, really. We just had an adios party for Silas for when he goes back to Switzerland on July the 5th. And Chris was there with Angel. And Jack didn't make it. He was still out of town. He just got back in town today. But anyway, everybody wishes him well. And David and I will go out to see him off on July the 5th.
Nice.
With his host family.
And Robin, did you enjoy the workshop? Robin was there. Did you double?
Yeah, I did. And then I'm like, you know what? I can't comprehend some of it because I'm going so fast. And then I thought, okay, I just have to go through it again and like really figure it out. But yeah, I did double. I went from 200 and let's see, I actually got the things right here, the notes. Yeah. I went from 230 words a minute to 460.
Perfect. That's what we expect. Great. Okay.
Now, Ed, Howard goes 25,000 words a minute.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my special gift.
I met him in our Mindset Club on Clubhouse some time ago, a little less than a year ago, I think, and I was sold, and so I got immediately onto his site and got the reading program. So
fantastic. Well, Ed's going to be an exciting guest. Does anyone have any other business I need to discuss before I introduce him? Anyone? I'm looking at Linda because she's the one.
Well, don't forget, July the 11th is our in-person meeting, governor visit.
Yes.
With our project we're putting together 50 backpacks for the homeless vets of Dallas. So we want everybody locally that can be there at the Spring Creek Barbecue at 183 in Beltline in Irving by 5:45. So board members be there at 5.
A little humor. I'm planning a mob to keep power.
Well, you have to be there at 5 o'clock as a past president. And we're all going to be inducting Blake Lindsay will be joining us. He's already paid his dues and all that. Oh, and I will be sending out dues I tried to do it last night, but it ended up everybody's being charged $500 instead of $250, so I've got to delete it. And so you should not have gotten any dues notices.
I did. I got a notice.
What did it say?
I think it was $250.
Was it? 'Cause I didn't know. Did anybody, Robin, did you get one?
I don't know if I did. I don't think I did, but I got a notice that you owe me $250.
Okay, well that's
No, I'm joking. That's okay.
well, the dues notice. Jerica, you didn't get one? Well,
I never got one though.
Is
No.
that why
Okay,
my
you
money
put it
goes
out.
to Robin? My money's going directly to Robin, I believe. That was the...
Okay, that's all I've got. Dues are due by the 17th of July. You can send me a check. It saves our chapter $9 a person, or you can do it on the credit card when you get your invoice.
Okay, I tried to do it to... I don't know if you knew this, Outlook, the whole website was down for about 3 or 4 hours today.
Who?
Outlook, Microsoft Outlook. It
Oh,
was
really? I haven't been on
It
it.
crashed. That was amazing. That's like NBC isn't on TV today, or
Oh,
Fox isn't on. I mean, Microsoft is a pretty big internet company. If they go down for 4 hours, that's very spooky.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I went to take. I saw it last night on my phone. I said, "Well, I don't like doing that on the phone. I'll take care of it when I get to my computer in the morning." And couldn't get to it because the website crashed, and it was down for 3-4 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got emails all day.
Well, I can only tell you what I saw. Oh, Charlotte's there. I got to let her in. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm busy talking.
Okay.
I'm usually not the one doing this. This is Linda's Zoom meeting. I'm running it for her because they were out of
No.
town.
No, you're not. You're the Zoom person.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to introduce Ed. Ed was supposed to be here last time, but he couldn't make it because of a family emergency, and he was kind enough to take today because the person from today couldn't make it. And it's a hard job getting people to come. It really is. But we always appreciate when they do, Ed.
Flexibility is the key to air power, right?
Ed's the crazy person who flies into hurricanes for the and checks out what's going on inside of them. Which, thank God, we have someone who does that, because I'm sure it saves a lot of lives and helps them to be. They're probably much more accurate than whatever they can do with a radar or anything like that. They actually see this is the hurricane. I can't imagine what that experience would be like. I've been in turbulence and I didn't like it. And I would imagine flying into a hurricane, there's a bit of turbulence going on when you do that. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And we're grateful that you do. And we'll look forward to your story. I'd like to recommend you mute your microphones while he's speaking so we don't get background noise. And then we can ask questions at the end. Ed, we usually go about 20 to 30 minutes. It is 7:14, so around 7:45 or sooner. It's up to you. And if you do have PowerPoints, we can let you share the screen at the bottom if that's what you would like. I'm going to mute my microphone.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Ed Scherzer, crazy world-famous hurricane hunter in the Air Force Reserve, as we say, and it's a very unique job. I actually started in 1999, and I actually just hung it up a year ago. So I did 22 years as the mad weather guy in the back, and all the crew positions, pilots, navigators, weather officers, which are the meteorologists, the big brains on the airplane, and then a job that is a hybrid job, a dropson systems operator. We get our meteorology tech training in the Air Force, and it's a very, very intense technical training school, the second highest washout rate school of any school in the entire tech training, 30,000 students a year of technical training school for our jobs in the Air Force. And so besides air traffic control, they had a little bit higher washout rate. And so I did that while I was in college. And so I came from a large entrepreneur family as a young kid in Northern Virginia. hustling and selling anything and everything around Northern Virginia as a kid. And then went to school for finance, but I needed cash to pay for my school. So just like Howard was saying, to help the wounded warriors and the vets of the world get more education, and I'm all about that. I think the grounding, fundamental foundation of the world is learning, and I'll always be a consummate student in life. And so that's why I just fell in love with Howard when I met him on Clubhouse. And his passion and his mission is near and dear to mine. So I also want to build a large network specifically to help those selfless servants of the world that give so much and need to then go inward and find their own mission and be able to find what it is that they are very passionate about, but also help them with the learning tools they need to do so. So to rewind, while I was in college, I went to the Air National Guard. My buddy's dad was a general there, and he swore me in at 20 years old. And they gave me 3 options. They said you could peel potatoes and cook, which I love cooking from my Nana's kitchen, Italian kitchen growing up, but I didn't want to do that. And they said you could load bombs on fighter jets, and I didn't want to do that. And they said you could forecast the weather. And so I rewound my mind and thought, that's why I fell in love and got an A in 9th grade earth science on the formation of thunderstorms. And so it just came to fruition, some 4 or 5 years later, that I fell back in love with meteorology, and that gave me a roadmap towards finishing school. However, 2 years later, after all that Air Force Technical Training School, they offered me the job to do the job as a dropsonde systems operator. Only one of 20 people in the world that get to do this job. 10 are full-time as ARTs, Air Reserve Technicians, and 10 are part-time as reservists. So I started as a reservist while I was still finishing school, but then just a couple years later, just as I was finishing, figuring out what my next pathway would be, they gave me the opportunity to do it Federal Civil Service and Reserve. And then I made an entire 2 careers at once out of it. And so that took me all the way to last year when I'm pivoting again. And so it's a huge part of my identity. I'm doing a lot of work on myself, taking some real time that most vets don't have the privilege of doing. I built a nice little nest egg financially, took a year off and deciding different avenues to take. But I went back to school literally and learning really and going back and using like Howard's reading and writing. I'm doing some journaling and really getting deep into the creative writing. So I have a couple of formats already for a couple of books, but ultimately I want to help coach, especially veterans, to be able to find their pathway and go that route. But I tried to pull up a couple of PowerPoints for you folks, and I didn't want to bore you with the standard old PowerPoint presentation. So a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000,000. And so I pulled up the most recent stuff. If you really are an enthusiast and you want to go deeper, there's tons of stuff. The greatest part about my job, the public affairs aspect, other than the adrenaline rush you get to fly through a storm, the Category 5, 155-mile-an-hour storm, is the public affairs aspects of the job for me. I love being a people person. I love being out in the community, exactly what you guys have here in your group and your community, in your club. I like going out and educating the public, especially for preparation for storms. We did that before the storm season every year in the United States, especially the Southeast region, as well as in the Central American countries and Mexico and the Caribbean island nations that also get to use our data to help them prepare for storm season. So all the data from the airplane goes to the National Hurricane Center in Miami. That's where the big brains forecast with the supercomputers and models that you see on TV and the news when they broadcast it. We increase the accuracy of that computer modeling of the storms by up to 30% with our data that we collect. But I'm going to share my screen. I pulled up some most recent videos throughout the storm season. If it's a landfalling storm, if it's a storm that's catching headlines and it's directly affecting the U.S. especially, we bring different news media on board the aircraft, and they film and take pictures and write stories about us. And then one of my favorite parts of my career is back in 2007, 8, 9, just after Katrina hit here on the Gulf Coast. We'll talk about Katrina a little bit and the impact it had on the unit in 2005. When it made landfall here on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. That's where I'm at now, Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. But I pulled up some video of news crews that flew through the storm. So just about a 5-minute video. And then really I'd like to go into deep whatever you guys would like to know about the mission, the crew, the data and the science behind it, the math and science stuff. That's my gee whiz stuff since I was the Dropson operator. But also we did other humanitarian missions that I really love too. As a loadmaster, we would carry passengers and cargo and help sometimes after the storms when nations have been affected, especially the last few years with Puerto Rico and different places, in the U.S. that needed our help after the storm. So I'll share my screen now. See if I could do this. This is a first for me. Okay, it came up. I want to hide. Let's see. But now my controls are at the top, Howard. Do you know how to pull the controls, hide video panel, so I can get to the... There it goes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can you see the YouTube video coming up?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. 5-minute ride into a hurricane. Are you guys ready? You strapped in? I know David's strapped in. It's not coming up. Maybe it went to the next video. It was a 5-minute one. Now it looks like it's 18.
Sometimes they load slower because you're on Zoom and it uses a lot of bandwidth, so it might take a little longer.
Gotcha. I emailed them to myself today. It was like 4 links.
David may get airsick.
Dave, before you came in the room, Linda was saying that you're the resident aviation engineer expert. So if we're not flying right, I need you to tell me. Here we go. Take a flight with the hurricane hunters. This is from Florence just a few years ago, Hurricane Florence. It might have been a tropical storm at this time, and it got some pretty good views. This was the Wall Street Journal, put it on their YouTube page. It was 4 years ago, and it got 180,000 views. So this was a more popular flight that we did that got national news coverage. Usually they just get regional news coverage because the Southeast is affected by storms. But occasionally, as they make it up the more populated East Coast, then we'll get larger and more nationally recognized news sources will fly with us.
Hang on to your butts. All right, here we go. We're about to go through some of the worst turbulence you can possibly go through. We're punching through the dirty side.
Can you hear it okay, Howard?
It's a little low. We can hear it, but it's a little low.
I'm sorry, Howard?
You may want to pump the volume up a little if you can.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay.
The U.S. They're tasked with collecting the most
Better.
up-to-date data inside the monster storm. The information will help government agencies, businesses, and residents make critical decisions on the ground. WSJ joined the crew for the bumpy ride.
We fly 24/7 around the clock.
The plane, the Lockheed WC-130J Hercules, is equipped with special sensors that detect specific information about storms that satellite imagery, storm modeling, and other technologies can't pick up. The crew is made up of Air Force reserves and members of the U.S. Coast Guard and Navy. They prepare for the flight and plot out a route before taking off.
About 2 minutes to the box. That went pretty good.
Oh, it's so dark.
The first few hours of the flight were dark and calm.
Oh, that's because
During
that's
this time, the crew monitored for developments and prepared for the storm ahead.
it's one of my good friends, Nate Calloway.
As the morning sun broke through the clouds, the crew readied for the first pass through the storm's wall. To collect the data, the mission's loadmaster deploys a series of these cardboard-wrapped capsules called the drop zone.
That was my job.
Drop on station. My primary job is to drop the weather that gives a vertical profile from flight level all the way down to the sea surface of what that storm looks like. This is the actual drop zone we drop.
That's a buoy at the back. It's a different instrument. That's a drop sound.
Press a launch button on the computer and opens the valve for the belly. The indicators are eyewall, eyewall.
Before any of the data on board is sent back to land, it's checked and adjusted by the onboard weather officer.
I can't take you right now, Mr. Q. Go to mommy. Mommy will take you. Go to mommy. I can't take you.
So within 5 minutes of us penetrating the storm, they already have the data and can input it into the computer models immediately.
On this mission, the plane traveled roughly 1,000 miles from the coast to reach the storm before passing through the eye wall multiple times.
Our mantra, Howard, is duty, honor, data. It's all about the data.
The data collected on Tuesday's flight prompted National Hurricane Center forecasters to increase their estimate of Florence's wind speed in an update less than 2 hours later. The hurricane hunters, based out of Biloxi, Mississippi, have been flying into Florence since Monday. For the crew on board, the 3-hour flight back to base was time to relax, knowing that the work they do is making a difference.
As a first responder, extrication of patients is one of the biggest challenges.
Okay, just a couple of pictures. I did pull up a few pictures that are some of my favorites over the years, different missions that are on my Facebook group, and you guys are welcome. My Facebook profile is public, and you're welcome to friend me if you'd like. I post a lot of stuff, or I had before, of different things, associated with the mission. As I was saying, the public affairs aspect of our job is just something that I really enjoy, and the fact that all of our information that we collect, unlike many other military entities, is secret or top secret. Ours is public domain information. So the fact that we get on an Air Force airplane, some of the technology that's inside the J model, the upgraded airplane, This is a picture here of me standing outside of a plane, and they superimposed this for public affairs use just to make it more dramatic. But this is an early morning flight we were taking when we were up in Alaska, one of my favorite places we used to go for winter storm missions, and we would drop the same dropsons high altitude and ahead of Alaskan storms that were coming in the Gulf of Alaska that were going to dump rain and snow in the northeast of the country. So outside of tropical storm flying, we also do the winter storm missions off the west coast of the United States, California coast, and then further up north in Alaska sometimes, and even sometimes closer to Hawaii for large storms during the winter that flood the western United States and the northwest of the United States. Let's see, I'm going to pull this down. Hide floating controls. Okay, here's another. Comes up. Few tabs. I'm going to close that one. It's time for a new machine, Howard, as I was saying. This one's really cool. This is another cool PA shot they did. This is superimposed, but this is the lithograph that most hurricane hunters get when they retire. And then we all sign this picture, but just a really cool picture. Lightning does strike. One of the most common questions we get, does lightning actually strike the airplane? And it does. And so the J model, that's what represented here. The old H model plane was an analog plane, lots of wires and gauges, where this is a flying computer. We went to the J. We were one of the first units in the world to go to the new J model, which was a Lockheed Martin plane designed in the late 90s. We certified it for flight like 4 years after we got it in 95 and 99, right when I got there, and we're still testing it out. But because it had so much computer technology, we had to make sure that it was going to be safe, or if we did get struck by lightning in the storm, it wouldn't zap our computers. And so I was part of the testing program in my early years of flying to be able to get the plane certified. And so we had several years where we did that, where we went through some trials and tests to make sure we could certify it for flying in storms. What was going on there? Sorry for the delay. Let's see. All right, and then this is my parting shot. This was my last season in 2021, and Air Force News flew with us and took this pretty cool shot of me. So you can see I'm sitting at the Dropson station, just like Nate Callaway was, that spoke a lot in that video. And this was my station. We sat directly in the back of the airplane. The two pilots and navigators sat up front. And as you saw, the weather officer on board, called the ARWO, the Air Reconnaissance Weather Officer, and the Dropson operator and loadmaster sit both in the forward cargo compartment in the back of the airplane. Okay, I'll open it up for questions, and I'll see if I can stop sharing my screen now.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Hurricanes are like tornadoes in that they rotate. So if you're flying a plane into a hurricane, do you try to fly like in in one of the rotational directions to get lift, or do you cut across? How do they actually?
I'm having a hard time bringing the Zoom back up, Howard.
That's okay. You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Just then you could, if you click on end share.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
It'll come up. End share.
And stop share. Gotcha.
Yeah, that'll be all you need. So I'm back. I was always wondering how when you're flying, because the winds are rotating, it's almost like a tornado but on a larger airspace.
Sure.
And you wouldn't want to fly a plane right through a tornado because it probably wouldn't work out well. So are they flying at a diagonal? Or are they flying straight into the winds? How do they actually pass the storm without?
Good question. So if you saw the radar, you know, it's just a anticyclone wall of wind and rain that rotates anticyclonic just counterclockwise. Low pressure systems are all counterclockwise. High pressure systems are clockwise. So as the storm is rotating, we actually turn into what's called a crab. And so the pilots compensate for that. And we always want the winds, whichever direction the wind's coming from, we compensate and put the winds on our left wing. To be able to do that. So if the wind direction changes slightly, then we'll change slightly also. So typically we're crabbing into, which Dave will be able to explain what a crab is. We're not flying directly into it. In order to compensate for those winds, we have to turn towards the wind slightly to crab about 20 to 30 degrees as we enter. So you're right, we fly, crooked as we're going into the storm. And then another facet is because it's a low pressure system, like a soup bowl pattern, we actually descend into the storm. We fly at a 10,000 pressure altitude instead of actual just normal altitude above the Earth's surface. We fly a PA, or pressure altitude, at 10,000, but because the storm is a low pressure system, that 10,000 feet outside the storm is at one level, and then it's 10,000 feet inside the storm is typically about 7,000 feet above the surface of the ocean. And so we're kind of what we say hanging on the straps, the seat straps, as we're diving into the storm. And sometimes the storms can be so deep, like you said, with a tornado, the pressure gradient is too strong in between each pressure, where the hurricanes, the pressure is spread out over a larger area, allowing the airplane to successfully fly through that, where a tornado, it would explode, it would destroy the airplane because of the pressure gradient. And so that's how we crab into it and then fly the soup bowl pattern to get to the center of the storm.
And my other question was, I noticed it was a prop plane and not a jet, and I was curious, why would they prefer a prop in a windstorm over a jet that has more power and thrust?
Yeah, so good question. The few tests that were done with any type of jet propulsion, the intakes would take in too much water and therefore choke off the engine. And so the prop plane does a good job that the intake is protected by the spinning of the prop to be able to allow the air, but also to not allow too much of the water to come in. And so this is a C-130. Actually, we've been doing this since 1944 when this the squadron was created. And sorry, I don't have the history. That's a really unique story. In 1944, on a wing and a dare, but it was a pilot and a weather officer and a navigator went out to investigate before they even had satellite to be able to tell where the storm was coming from, or radar to be able to tell where it was. They knew it was coming, and I think it was off the Texas coast. And so this was at a pilot training base, and they were at a bar, like most aviators, and said, let's go out there and see what we can find. And so they grabbed a weather officer to just go do an investigative mission, and that started the world famous Hurricane Hunters in 1944. And so we started with a B-25 and then eventually a C-130 in the 70s, and then 3 iterations of C-130. So the Hercules is the workhorse of the Air Force and has just always done a good job. It's a smaller cargo airplane versus a C-17 is the big brother, and a bigger than that, a C-5. Those planes probably wouldn't do so well to be able to get through the storm, but the 130 is compact enough, but rigorous and strong enough to be able to get through the storm. There's no other structure or any type of reinforcement that's done with the C-130 Hercules to be able to strengthen it. The only thing is the nose cones. They reinforce those because of all the hail damage and sometimes the lightning that we get on the front of the nose cones of that, and then the radar. So we had to upgrade and make some tweaks that took about a year and a half for the big brains at Lockheed that put together our specific weather penetrating radar instead of what most aviation is, weather avoidance radar. So ours is a little different. But those are the only two modifications to the airplane.
Howard, I just want to make a comment. My grandniece is in the Air Force. She's making a career of it. I think she'll be out in 6 years, but she's in meteorology. And so she's been over at Cape Canaveral. She was sent to Saudi Arabia for 6 months last year, and now they've transferred her to Kaiserslautern near Ramstein.
All right.
So she got standing person, I guess, last year when she was in Barksdale. And so we're real proud of her. And
That's
then
great.
Her father was also in the Air Force, and he flew the C-130s. He was an engineer. So,
That's great. A flight engineer?
yes. I
Awesome.
think he also helped take bombs over to what was the storm, Desert Storm. He was one of the ones loading bombs, taking them over there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I learned a lot about aviation from those flight engineers from the old plane. The new plane, we lost the flight engineer just because the airplane was so automated that the flight engineer no longer had as a position on the J model airplane, where some of the older airplanes, we had flight engineers that would monitor all the instruments to be able to back up the pilots in emergency situations for flying.
But we hope
Robin,
to go over there next year and see her.
let's see, Robin's hands up. Robin wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, okay, so I know we're told in school that like in the middle of the storm that it's dead quiet. Is that a myth or is that really true?
Yeah, good question, Robin. So the storm can be, the eye itself can be up to 10 miles across, and so I've had the unfortunate event. I'd much rather be in the plane, but like I said, we're on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, so we're affected by tropical weather here directly in the storm's paths occasionally. And the eerie eye, or the very calm eye, it's exactly that. And so you get a lapse of rain, you get what's called a dampening effect. So the low pressure just keeps everything pushed down, and so you don't get the wind, you don't get the rain. It's the lowest pressure of the storm, and it's an eerie calm. And so we have what's called a stadium effect as we're flying through. So the walls of wind and rain can be all around us, 50,000, 60,000 feet high, and we're a tiny little plane flying through at 10,000 feet in the bottom of the storm. So we can see, like standing on a 50-yard line of a big football stadium, you're looking up and all around you of the clouds all the way up to 50,000 feet.
That's amazing. I was wondering too. I live in South Dakota, so there's nothing exciting here.
Beautiful summers, though, that they're not hot and sticky like it is in Texas or Mississippi.
True. Well, that's what I've been told anyway. I guess I know a little bit. So what would be worse, like the tornado or like the hurricane? Because I've only seen like there was last summer. Well, when it was hurricane season. Or not hurricane season, tornado season. We get tornadoes, hurricanes. We had a tornado that knocked out Castlewood, which is a town about 15 miles from Watertown. But I had the experience, unfortunately, of seeing like the surrounding clouds that build up for the tornado, and that wind is strong. It did pick me up. I was trying to get to the house. And I'm 200 and some pounds. So I'm thinking the wind was strong enough to do that, and I didn't even experience like the tornado, just like the clouds and I see the funnels. But I was wondering which is worse, the tornado or the hurricane? Because
Yeah, so the
I'm like, I wanna move, but, like, what's worse?
the devastation of a tornado is, think of it as the race car of natural weather disasters, and it's going to come at you fast. You're not going to be able to prepare as much. It's going to be a phenomenon that happens within minutes. Where a hurricane, you have days to prepare, and you know it's coming. It can form. Now it can go from a strong tropical storm to even a Cat 3 or 4 in 24-hour period. We've seen that rapid intensification. So those are what the Hurricane Center and us have been doing over the last few years. The path forecast has been really dialed in. Kind of know at this point, after 20-something years of me doing it even, of the technology has increased to be able to help with the path. But the intensification and the rapid intensification of a storm, we're still working on. They're getting better at that. But it's tornado. That's where you live in Tornado Alley. You got to be prepared. And we all have these technologies that help warn us if you use them, and to understand that it's a phenomenon that can happen very quickly, and so it comes out of the spawn of the tail of a thunderstorm, and so it can quickly happen, and so that's a different animal. The race car versus the old classic car that is a fleet of cars for a hurricane. And so those of us, when we live on the Gulf Coast, we have a system where we prepared for 3 or 4 days without food and water and to be able to survive. But the real tragedies that happen with storms are because people don't evacuate, and they get the storm surge that comes in, floods the area, and then you're not able to escape the water in a car or in a small home that's near the Gulf Coast, and you don't anticipate that the flooding is going to take over, and then it just rapidly fills up. So there's lots of stories from the Gulf Coast, unfortunately, of people passing and not making it because the storm rapidly came in, and they didn't know or anticipate that it was going to flood as fast as it did. Within 12 or 15 hours, it went from hardly any water on the ground to now it's 6, 8, 12, or 15 feet, sometimes above their homes, and so they didn't get out in time and end up drowning. So that's the fatality rate is mostly from the storm surge of a hurricane.
So this is Jerica. Robin, I can attest. I've been through a tornado in Indiana and 2 hurricanes, Francis and Jean, in Florida, and I don't like the hurricane. It lasts a lot long. It sounds like the freight train is never going to leave. I mean, it's just the most scariest thing. Because a tornado, it comes and goes. You're right. The devastation is quick. But the hurricane lasts for 8 hours, and you are there. You have nowhere else to go. It's just scary.
Yeah, which the whole point is the idea of why we do what we do is really to help the emergency managers and the forecasters of the world, and so really to get the people that are in harm's way to make an evacuation plan, especially if it's a mandatory evacuation. If it's above Cat 3 or above a major storm and it's coming as a direct shot to the coast, those people just need to get out temporarily. They shouldn't stay and try to ride it out.
So Ed, I do have sorry, go ahead, Robin.
I was wondering too about for the lightning, because you said you do get hit by lightning. How do you stay alive in that? I think to myself, like electricity, we've got on the ground, you're not supposed to go in the air.
Yeah.
And then I'm like in the air, but you're getting electrocuted.
Yeah, we don't feel the effects of the lightning. The airplane occasionally will let us know, and we'll go into what's called a BIU backup mode, and so it's just like your computer rebooting, and so it will go into a default mode to be able to use our mission computers as backup to the actual computers. So it's a two computer system and then a two backup computer system. But then even if we lost all electronics on the airplane, we would revert back to the old analog technology of the plane, and the plane would still work just because we have the fuel still going to those engines. And so it can become a flying Cessna at that point, an old style airplane. So the computers are there to operate the aircraft primarily, but we always have a backup plan. And a couple of times that's happened where we've lost all electronics. And if that's the case, we would leave the storm environment immediately and get safe on the ground. But the airplane does a good job of dissipating that lightning effect, so we don't actually feel it inside the aircraft.
Go ahead, David. David has something to say, I think.
Hey, David.
I was just going to say I'm having trouble adjusting to these little bitty airplanes.
Sit down so they can
Yeah.
I worked on the 17, all of those kind of things. But as far as hard, you got to realize, like a jet engine, you don't need a jet engine at the speeds they're flying.
Yeah, we're at 180 knots air is storm penetration speed. So we actually slow down pretty good to be able to penetrate the storm, so we don't get as much of the turbulence, but still be able to maintain control of the aircraft.
Well, it's not really the airspeed, it's the turbulence. It's like a steady 180 knots is nothing. But when it varies very quickly, that's when you kind of
Right. The airplane's doing one of these where it's back and forth, and so yeah, that's happening a lot. So we put a lot of trust in the pilots up front, and they train really hard to keep us safe in the storm environment. They fly manually through the storm.
Have there ever been
Only
any
one
losses?
time, Howard,
Is
in
there any-
the history of the squadron. Swan 38 was the call sign for the plane coming back from the Pacific. We fly Typhoons out in the Pacific, or we used to a lot. And twice in my career, I got to go to Guam and fly even bigger storms. If you can imagine, Cat 5s are 155 here. I flew a Typhoon that was a Cat 5. It was 225 mile an hour winds in 2003 and 2008. I got to go to Guam and do some research missions, and a Japanese news crew flew with me, and when we landed, the airplane shook so violently that we lost several of like the power inside of the different aspects of the radios and things came unbolted in the airplane, and they jumped out of the airplane and kissed the ground. The Japanese news crew did. Really. But we were out there doing some research with the Navy in those years.
Well, I was in the Navy, and I had a problem where you talked about them giving you a choice of what to do. I don't have a choice of what to do.
I don't think he would have chosen that. I don't think he would have
The
chosen
Navy
that.
didn't give you a choice, Dave?
Do what they say or be in a whole lot of trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe you go where they tell you to go and do what they tell you to do.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate that as a reserve guy and an aircrew guy, I got to pick my job, and so I was at the right place at the right time, and my part-time job became my full-time career. So there's some drawbacks now that I don't have the pension, or I'm not going to get a pension till I'm 60, but in active duty you get your pension right away, and so there's some pros and cons there, but I feel like I got to win that battle because I got to choose my job. I had an amazing career, and I didn't have to go and move jobs and travel around the world like active duty counterparts in the Navy and all the other armed forces, where you're at their beck and call basically, and whatever their needs are become what you end up doing in your job.
Charlotte, have you had any hurricanes over there since you've been in Mobile?
No, not since we've been there. Oh gosh.
Oh, okay. We're only an hour from Mobile here in Biloxi.
Yeah, they were close by.
Yeah.
They were close
5.
Yeah.
So I was just no, we're almost out of time. It's like 5 to 8. So does anyone have any last
Yeah,
questions?
Mr. Ed,
I would like to, it's a very
my
interesting
question is,
presentation.
I'm really surprised that this is ran by the Air Force. I did not realize that. So do you guys partner or collaborate with the National Weather Center, NOAA,
Yeah,
at all?
yeah,
Or are you guys independent?
That's a great question. So our funding, we're a really unique unit, and so our funding comes directly from the Department of Commerce, which is NOAA is under that, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and then the National Hurricane Center is under that, National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center, where the Weather Service is the entity that is all the weather for all the United States, every weather station in the country, and then the Hurricane Center is specialized for tropical weather forecasting specifically, and so that's under the Department of Commerce, but it's an Air Force Reserve airplane, and so we are trained as Air Force Reserve aircrew primarily first, and then we can do whatever's needed there, but 6 months out of the year the primary mission is the storms and flying the storms, and so it's kind of it's a dual government agency funded operation. Good question.
Any other questions before
Yeah, I
we
have a
wrap
question
up?
that's not related
Anyone?
to this talk. But
Any-
Ed, do you know
Okay.
anybody that might be interested in being a caretaker of a 27-acre property there on the Fowl River?
And where's the Bow River?
The Fowl River is just about 10 minutes north of Dauphin Island.
Oh wow! I did fly with lots of guys that were from Alabama or ended up retiring over in Alabama, and a few that actually go to Dauphin Island regularly, and it's part of their life and who they are. And so I might have that. So I don't mind keeping in touch. And
Okay, that would be great. Yeah,
it's
it's a
a
nice
27 acre property.
Yeah, it's a big house, about 8,100 square feet on the water.
Wow, to be a caretaker.
Yeah, we have rescue dogs there.
Ah.
And some chickens.
Okay, but you just don't live there as your primary residence?
Yeah, we're in Dallas a little bit more.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll keep that in mind, and I'll pass my contact information to Howard, and he'll pass that to you then.
Thank you. That'd be awesome.
You're welcome, Charlotte.
Charlotte, are you going to be at the meeting on the 11th?
Thanks. And you,
Maybe. I've got to go down because we have caretaker issues. So I don't know when I'll be back.
Because we're going to be installing you as secretary.
Oh, well, okay. I will definitely try to get back.
Okay.
You got, that's called getting voluntold, Charlotte.
Right?
That's called getting voluntold. The military, we say you just got voluntold. The military, we say you just got voluntold.
anyone else have a question or anything they need to discuss before we close out the meeting? Okay, then I'll do the four-way test.
You're very welcome, Howard.
Thank
It's my
you, Ed.
pleasure.
It was a very,
welcome,
very,
Howard.
very
It's my
interesting. Very, very interesting. I didn't want
You're
to
welcome.
close without thanking you. There's the four-way test of the things we think,
it the
say, and
truth?
do. First,
Is it
the
fair to
truth?
all concerned?
Second, is it fair to all
Will it build goodwill
concerned?
and better
Third,
friendship?
will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And we say 5, will it be fun? I'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Stay well, and my reign is ending soon.
And Ed, you're
What you
welcome.
gonna do with all that extra time, Howard? I got a new club.
I'll find out for something
Oh.
very soon.
I'm-
I'll find out for something
Well,
very soon.
I was president 3 times, so I'm really glad someone is. David was also, I think, 3 times. So I'm really glad others are stepping up. One day, Robin, maybe you'll be president, or Charlotte. It's what we want. We want people in our club to participate. We can't just have 2 or 3 people who make it work. It's important we take turns. sharing the responsibility so it benefits everyone. But I enjoyed my reign of power, and and I'll see you all in a
And come
couple of
back
weeks.
anytime.
Take care, everyone.
Second,
Yeah.
Bye.
second,